Hi, my name is Katherine Schwab. I'm a senior editor here at Forbes covering technology, and I'm really excited to be here today with Dr. Nashley Cephas. She's a principal AI and machine learning evangelist at Amazon and one of the judges for our 2023 AI 50 list. Nashley, welcome. I'm so excited to have you.
Hello, thanks so much for having me.
Great. So, can we start by telling me what does it mean to be an AI evangelist? That sounds like a very fun job to have at Amazon.
Yeah, it actually really is. And I'm not like preaching in a church or anything. That's the first thing people think. But when you think about the word evangelism, it basically means to evangelize or go where we haven't gone before. And so, in terms of being a tech evangelist or AI machine learning tech evangelist, we basically try to reach audiences that we normally don't reach. And specifically, my area of responsible AI, we try to definitely communicate to many different audiences about best practices there and what people could do to improve where we are today.
Awesome. Okay, so you said you focused on fairness and responsible AI. What are for people who don't know and aren't familiar with this, what are really the biggest problems that you see with algorithms like this? And how do you think about those solutions? Like, what kinds of advice are you kind of giving in terms of those best practices?
Yeah, so the umbrella of responsible AI is really has many different dimensions underneath. And so when we think about fairness, like you said, how do you mitigate any unwanted biases amongst any particular groups or intersections of groups that may have unequal disparities in the way a system performs? And a lot of times when you're working with people and humans, technologies that interface with humans, this is a very critical situation that you want to make sure you don't get anyone cause any harm or discriminate against anyone. Also, other dimensions include explainability. If I am denied for a loan at a bank and the bank used an algorithm to make that decision, then how sure are we that we understand what is actually going on with that algorithm, and how do we explain to that end user why that decision was made? And a lot of times for people who train models, that sometimes is very hard to do. And so we have to get a better handle on those things. There's also other areas of governance. How do you ensure that everyone involved is doing what they should be doing, from the data annotators all the way to the people who deploy the technology? And so there are many other hats we could go into, but I love how this field is just evolving as we go, and it's very important for everybody to be in the conversation.
That's great. So, in terms of the AI 50 list, specifically as a judge, what were you looking for when you were evaluating companies? And I'm curious if there were any surprises on the list this year.
Yeah, so we saw the several big companies that have made a lot of recent product advancements, and I expected to see them there. I also did see quite a bit in the healthcare space, as well as fintech, which I think we've seen those areas evolve a lot. Also, I saw a lot in the transportation space, autonomous vehicles. Um, but I always love the applications that surprise you, that have these ideas that you never thought, wow, that's a great idea. Like I never would have thought of that myself. And I've been in this industry for almost 20 years. I'm kind of dating myself. If you actually count when I actually started studying in college. And so, I love that finally we're at a place where it's not just the people with the PhDs that are able to have this technology, access this technology. Now we're broadening our scope so that we can hopefully do AI for good.
Okay, great. Were there any specific business applications that you thought were really exciting?
I think that, well, obviously, generative AI is taking the world by storm
Yeah.
here, and I think it provides a lot of job security for what I do in responsible AI. I think there are a lot of things that are going to come. down the line in terms of how do we ensure ethical and responsible use and behavior of these technologies. But at the same time, I love the fact that building these new interfaces with generative AI. So from the chat bots to the visual content creation algorithms, like those to me are just such a great place to start, I think, because you have so many people that are already in that world. And so now they can interface with that technology a lot easier. And that's when the innovation starts. And so I don't want to call it specific names, but yeah, I think it's been really good to see the generative AI take off, but also be aware of the limitations of the technology and things to be aware of as we ensure the safety of everyone.
Yeah, so in terms of those limitations, what would you say you are most focused on or most concerned about when it comes to the larger social impact here? I mean, you said that with this technology, you have a lot of job security, but that's something that a lot of people are worried about for their own jobs, especially as this kind of creeps into more white collar work, legal work, things like that. What are you concerned about, kind of more broadly?
Yeah, so there's the idea that there could be copyright issues
Mm-hmm.
amongst the way generative AI works is that you're basically creating new simulated data from existing data in some form or fashion, and it could be something that is aligned with the task at hand. It could be something that is accurate and right on point given all the data that's been put into the algorithm, which we don't know exactly what all the data is that's been put into the algorithm. So that's a issue. So there could be privacy issues, copyright issues that come of this, and just disinformation in general. I think if you look at, for example, social media world, like we already have a huge problem with disinformation, and this generative AI technology also can provide what we call hallucinations. And it just, when it doesn't know the answer, sometimes it just tends to make up the answer. That's the nature of how the models are these foundation models are trained. And so, a lot of concerns there, it really just boils down to some of the use cases. There are some awesome use cases out there for these products and this technology. However, we are still very much in a discovery phase. We're still learning how customers and end users will use the technology. And so, whereas before we were thinking traditional AI algorithms, now we have to think slightly differently about generative AI and how we, add that governance on there. Um, but I think again, it's a good place to be because we're discovering what we don't know, and that can also be something to be alarmed about because once the technology is in the hands of people, they can use it for good and they can use it for bad.
Okay, so on that point, there is kind of a growing number of people who are kind of calling for this technology to be halted or slowed down so that governance can catch up, regulation can catch up, we can kind of figure out what to do about all of these issues that you just laid out. Where do you stand on that? I mean, is that an even realistic thing to think that companies will slow their roll here? I mean, what should we do?
Well, I definitely think this is a responsibility of everyone, especially the large tech companies, the small tech companies, the startup companies, government, as you mentioned, public policy makers. I know that um, we are, in particular, one of the things that I focus on in my role is training. So we have a very extensive training process on how we train people internally about how to think about responsible AI and how to properly use technologies. We also talk about transparency, like how are you ensuring that you're being very transparent about what this technology is intended for, what it's not intended for, um, and really buckling down to the use cases. And for those use cases that are very critical, what we call mission critical, to where it could possibly affect someone or put someone in danger, then we must handle that with care across the board. So we do a lot of trainings around that as well. And what I found in my history and time of doing this is that when people know better, they tend to do better. And when you show them, these are the results of not handling with care versus these are the results of being aware of the limitations. People usually abide, and they try to do as best as they can to move in that direction.
So, from your position within Amazon, if you're doing these trainings, it sounds like you're interfacing with a lot of different people throughout the company, engineers, product managers who are working with this and implementing it. What is the atmosphere within Amazon right now about AI? I mean, I know that the company has been working on this for a very long time. AWS is a massive player in this space, just in terms of providing the compute power for these big models. So what are you noticing in terms of kind of how the atmosphere in the company has shifted around this?
Well, at one point, Amazon was called the largest AI company in the world.
Wow.
And I, from where I stand, I can see that, we obviously have a lot of AI baked into the various subsidiaries and business areas that we are in. And so responsible AI has really always been something that we've been mindful of. I know ever since I've been, working with the various teams at Amazon, it's been a priority, and understanding in general that AI is the future, and that there are many people, both within our company and externally, who use our services, such as Amazon Web Services, that are going to try to operationalize responsible AI on top of what they're already doing in AI, which is constantly growing in various industries as well. And so we really have to get ahead of the new technologies. We really have to get ahead of it. And so we're always thinking about how can we present ourselves as having one of our leadership principles was being responsible, and being the leaders, the change makers in different areas within AI. And so along with that comes that additional responsibility to make sure that not just our customers, but the people, the end users, that sometimes our customers are purchasing our products to develop products for other end users, but we're having that broad span where we're looking at all those people on the end, and it's a constant iterative life cycle, and how we deploy products. It's not just a one and done. You have to monitor that over time. You have to improve it over time, and you have to get customer feedback on how that is actually performing and how it's making people feel. And so that really is the only way you can have the top scholars, the top scientists in the world. But until you understand that, you're significantly limited.
So Amazon got a lot of bad press a couple of years ago for its facial recognition algorithm called Recognition. And I don't know if you were at the company at the time, but I'm curious what you think the company learned from that episode. I know that Amazon paused development of that algorithm because it had some real bias problems, and decided to pause putting that technology in the hands of police. So I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about what the company learned from that and how that's informed the work you're doing right now.
There is a moratorium on the sale of face technologies within AWS recognition to law enforcement and military agencies. And that is still going to be the case until we come up with jointly with public policy and lawmakers on how we can better enforce, the rules around how you administer looking for biases in these types of technologies. And so I do know that we are actively doing a few things. We have a public policy team that actively works with the United States government on these issues and topics. There was recently an AI Bill of Rights that was released from Capitol Hill in DC. And it is a very well laid out white paper basically on what is to come in the future around policy, what sort of compliances are there to come, and they are coming. And so we are also trying to stay ahead of that and help influence that policy and enforce those things that are coming down the line, even for our own customers. Other things that we're doing, we have also understood that AI tech development teams usually require, in order to have the best outcome, diverse techies on the team. And so, how do we diversify our tech teams? One, we have a scholarship program for Black women in AI who are getting their PhDs in that area. There's also several NSF grants that we partner with other universities and colleges to help give them funding so that they can also look into and research these important topics alongside with us. We have also just recently, last fall, released a machine learning course for community colleges because we understand not everybody's going to have a PhD to get into this field. And so, but there will be more and more AI jobs coming down the line. And so we're just trying to increase the workforce development pool of people that can get into those positions.
Great. Amazon is very clearly poised to gain a lot from the AI boom, but there's also, you know, a lot of growing companies, including those on the AI 50 list this year, OpenAI being kind of one of the big obvious one, the big giant here. Do you see the next generation of tech giants that could really come to compete with some of the big behemoths, including Amazon?
Yeah, I mean, I personally welcome it because, you know, when they say competition makes you stronger. And so iron sharpens iron, that sort of way of thinking. I know that there are many companies out there, even on that list. I thoroughly enjoyed myself reading through those lists of companies and what those folks were doing. Did research on those founders and the people who are the head of the machine learning portion and what they brought to the table technically. And it just really gave me a lot of hope for what's to come down the line. And again, I'm also always of the mindset, how do we continue to diversify these folks? But I saw a lot of diversity on that list, and that really, you know, was really good to see.
10 years from now, once some of this has kind of maybe settled a little bit more, how do you think that generative AI in general, will have kind of reshaped the way that we live and work?
I think it's similar. A lot of people use the example of when the calculator was first created, or even let's say the graphing calculator, bring it up a few decades. And so we were able to start using that graphing calculator alongside what was being taught in the classroom. I took, you know, algebra, pre-calculus in high school, geometry, whatever the area was, it was used as a tool to help supplement. And I believe that in terms of education, because that is usually where people think first, is how are people trying to you know, misuse this technology to get ahead in education. And we've seen different articles and use cases come out that were not, you know, in a very good way to use the technology. But I think that the more you ban something, you know, that typically just makes people want to use it even more.
Right.
And so why not, you know, think ahead? And I think that is an opportunity for companies like Amazon to think ahead about how are we also preparing the next generation of educators or even the current educators to use this as a tool alongside what they're already teaching. And then outside of that, we've seen I work with a lot of small business owners. I work a lot in my community as well with different startup companies and helping students who are interested in getting into tech. And we've seen them be able to use this technology to help with things like business plans and market studies and all the tedious things that, you know, it's really hard to do, or really hard to get started doing. And people have been really successful in using that to help them in their everyday lives and in their small businesses. And understanding that, you know, not everything that comes out of the algorithm is the ground truth, you know, the be all end all, but just using it as a way to help catalyst what you're trying to do. I think those are all good use cases that I've seen so far.
That's great. Thank you so much, Nashley. It was really great to chat. And we were so happy to have you as a judge this year for AI 50. Thank you.
Thank you so much.